All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Caitlin Saposi-Belknap. I'm National Director of Move to Amend, and I'm speaking to you from Sacramento, California, and I'm really pleased that there are two folks who will be joining me in leading this webinar. Jessica, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, thanks, Caitlin. Hi, everyone. I'm Jessica Munger. I'm the Program Coordinator for Move to Amend, and I work out of our national office in Sacramento, although currently I'm in Los Angeles. Pass.
Great. And Rick is an old political friend from my home state, New Mexico. Do you want to introduce yourself, Rick?
Sure. My name is Rick Lass, and I've been involved in various political efforts for about 20 years now, and I live in Silver City, actually in the Nimbus, near Silver City, New Mexico, and I think that the move to amend is probably going to be the political struggle that defines our generation, and I'm happy to be volunteering to help on the Pledge to Amend campaign.
Great, thanks to you both. And Rick is one of our newest members to our National Political Organizing Committee. So this is the campaign that he's working on. This webinar is being recorded, and so if you join us late or if you have to hop off early, we will have the recording, or if you want to share it with others in your group. As always, we'll send it to you tomorrow along with the slides, so we'll be providing those as well. We can't run technical support while we're doing the webinar. If you have difficulties, you can contact support@anymeeting.com. But again, if you miss anything due to technical problems, you can refer to the recording. You can chat your questions at any point during the webinar. In the bottom left corner of your screen is a little chat box, and that's where you'll be able to ask questions. We'll probably just do the questions at the end, but you can type them in at any point, and then we'll circle back to them to make sure that we didn't miss anything along the way. And I think that's it for logistics. So I'm going, well, actually, let me do one other thing, which is just to check and see. I know we have some new folks here, so and then we also have a number of folks who are already active. So maybe we can just take 1 minute here to run this poll to see. You should see it up on your screen. There we go. Questions of your involvement with Move to Amend so far. So if you could let us know the answers to that, we'll kind of get a sense of who's here. I did see a lot of names I recognize, so I know there's a lot of affiliate coordinators here, but I saw some new names too. So, like we have pretty even spread of about a third affiliate coordinators, a third maybe not the leader of their group but active with an affiliate, and a third of you who are brand new. So great, that's great, good for us to know. So in light of the fact that we do have some new folks, we're going to start off with some background on Move to Amend, and I'm going to turn it over to Jessica to do that.
Thanks so much, Caitlin. So welcome everybody who's new to Move to Amend. I'm just going to give you a little bit of background information before we get started talking about Pledge to Amend. So Move to Amend is a coalition of hundreds of organizations and hundreds of thousands of individuals who are committed to social and economic justice, ending corporate rule, and building a vibrant democracy that is genuinely accountable to the people and not to corporate interests. So Move to Amend was launched about 6 years ago as the Citizens United ruling came down, and began out of a coalition of several organizations who had been doing work on issues around corporate power for over a decade, and already knew that Citizens United would have a major impact and have serious implications on that work. So this group of folks got together and decided to do something about it, and that's how Move to Amend was officially launched. And the goals of Move to Amend are, of course, to pass the We the People Amendment to make clear that artificial including corporations, unions, and nonprofits, do not have constitutional rights, and that money is not speech. And however, it's also to provoke discussion and organizing about how to make real the promise of American democracy through this constitutional renewal. But we also recognize that the constitutional amendment is not the end of the game in terms of realizing democracy in this country. So the strategy that we use for doing those things has an emphasis on building a grassroots democracy movement. So what that means is that the power is going to come from the bottom up. So we really focus on strengthening the work that happens in our communities on the ground with our grassroots volunteers to build for power starting there. And that includes focus on coalition building. We know that we can't do this work alone, and we know that there are lots of ways that corporate power manifests itself. And so we work in coalition with a lot of organizations who are on fronts of struggle that are severely impacted by corporate rule. So that happens both on a local level and on a national level. That we work in coalition, and that's a very important part of how we build power. That also means that we know that in order to make the change that we're looking at making, we have to be thinking of building a broad and inclusive movement. So in order to have the political muscle it takes to make this sort of change, that movement needs to be multiracial, multi-ethnic, intergenerational, and cross-class, so that we really have people power to make this sort of thing happen, and to have the staying power for what happens after the amendment passes, so that there's infrastructure in place to hold that power. We also really emphasize community organizing and not just activism. And the difference here is that organizing really means relationship building. So it's a lot more than just signing the petition or clicking something online, but it's really about making relationships with others who understand the importance of ending corporate power, and that means lasting relationships and really strengthening the fibers of this movement that we are building. So we put a lot of resources and emphasis into organizing, and that happens on a local level, really. So so much of the work, so many of you on this call, I'm sure, are our affiliate leaders. You know the work that it takes on the ground to talk to folks in your community. That's where our relationships already exist. So that's where we work to really strengthen those relationships, both with folks in our community and with our local elected officials and such. And along those lines, our target right now is really the American people. So as much as, as we'll talk about a little later, we do have a bill that's been introduced in Congress. It was also introduced in the last Congress. That's HJR 48. And, we work on lobbying and talking with our representatives and such, but we know that the power really lies with the people, and it should lie with the people. And so that's really where the majority of our focus is. So our structure of Move to Amend begins with our local affiliates. So many of you are interacting with affiliates or are leading affiliates. Some other organizations might call them chapters. And it fluctuates, but we usually have between 50 and 100 affiliates around the country in all kinds of communities, rurally, in urban places as well, who are doing the work to educate their community and to pass resolutions and lots of other stuff on a local level. And then we have the national team, and that's composed of staff and our board and our intern team, who all work together to support the work of our local affiliates. And then we also have national committees. And so in order to make the materials and the sort of infrastructure to support our local affiliates. Our national committees are made up of board, staff, interns, affiliate members, and other sort of at-large volunteers who volunteer in a variety of areas to help support this work. And then we also have our endorsing and partner organizations. I talked a little bit earlier about how we work in coalition with lots of organizations. So this is where they come into play. And we work with them on lots of events and a variety of other projects. And that's a very important part of this sort of weaving of this fabric of a movement that we're doing. So all of these components work together to create the overall Move to Amend organization. And so as you've probably gathered, the path to the amendment is a very long one, and we see it as a marathon, really, and not a sprint. And so when we think about where we are currently in that process, we see this as the movement phase. So we're doing a lot of education and building for power and capacity. So in everything we do, including this Pledge to Amend campaign, we have to ask, how do we conduct this action to ensure maximum public education and to best build our organizing power and capacity? So we do a lot of making connections between corporate rule and other fronts of struggle, and really kind of draw those narratives for folks to see how corporate power is really at the root of most of the problems that we face. And so that's what we're doing here, is building this political muscle that it's going to take to make this change. So that's just a little background before we get started, and I'll hand it back over to Caitlin to go next. Thank you.
Great, and I'll just add one thing, which is that we are just coming out with our kind of written up plan for achieving the amendment. And a lot of what Jessica spelled out is there. I just included a link on the sidebar. You can find that plan at movetoamend.org/plan, and it talks about kind of the pace that we're going to be going at, and how all these things fit together. And Pledge to Amend is one of the campaigns that we have been doing for quite some time. We really launched in 2014 and had a campaign last year focusing more on lobbying. So this year we're back in a federal election year and focusing back again on candidates. But it's important that we keep in mind, and keeping this slide up, that the real goal of Pledge to Amend is to bring this issue to the American public and to grow our movement. And so, of course, we're planting seeds for the leaders who will be in state and federal office when it comes time for us to turn more of our attention there, when we're really ramped up and looking at getting the amendment passed through Congress and then ratified by the states. And the people who are running for office now, mostly more at local and state level, are the ones who are going to be in power at that time. So we're planting seeds and educating them, but we also want to make sure that we maximize the opportunity of Pledge to Amend to reach the public and voters. So I'm going to talk about what that will look like for this year. So the goal of Pledge to Amend is to target candidates for local, state, and federal office, and to get their support on record for the We the People Amendment, and to make this an election issue. And our specific goal for 2016 is to secure 165 pledges from local, state, and federal candidates, and we want half of those people, 50% of those pledges, to result in people who are elected. And we're not in the business of making sure that they get elected, but we have that there just to make clear that we want to target not just candidates who are kind of more independent and alternative, who might be more likely to support our pledge, but also mainstream candidates who are most likely to be elected because they're the ones who are going to be in office, who are going to push our policy forward. So we want to be broad, and we want to be deep as we go about securing this at least 165 pledges there. Hopefully that helps. I got a message that you couldn't hear me very well. You can find more information at movetoamend.org/pledge-amend. That's where all the details for the campaign are. A few do's and don'ts that we want to go over. So last year when we ran this campaign, and those of you who were part of Move to Amend then, remember that we had not yet secured our 501c4 status. So Move to Amend was still operating as a project of a 501c3 educational organization. If you don't know the history and background of that, that's okay. We have a lot more latitude now, but yet and still, if we get too involved in trying to influence political races, then there's a number of kind of reporting requirements upon us and responsibilities that we as national have, and we're not in a position to kind of keep track of you and make sure that we're both in tandem there. And so the simplest way to make sure that we're not out of step is to just kind of follow these guidelines. So you may conduct candidate forums, and you want to invite all the candidates, but even if not everybody comes, that's okay, you can still proceed. Before, we had to be more careful that we were really only amplifying the voices of everyone. Now we can actually kind of favor candidates to some degree more who are responsive to us. We don't need to worry as much that we've got all our bases covered as a 501c4. We can have some bias. We can ask questions at candidate forums that are held by other groups like the League of Women Voters, or perhaps your official, city, or sometimes media holds candidate forums. So we can ask questions and we can target particular candidates if we want to. It's always a good idea to try for everyone, but you can zero in on particular folks. You can always encourage voter registration. You can send educational information to candidates, so you can provide background, and if they have no idea what corporate personhood is or what Move to Amend is working on, the We the People Amendment, you can give them context and information. You can support or oppose ballot initiatives. Generally speaking, we only do that for Move to Amend resolutions and or corporate rule-related issues. And remember that we don't want anyone endorsing and using Move to Amend's name without checking with National First, just to make sure. But you do have that latitude. And you can prepare voter scorecards or questionnaires to show how legislators have voted. So if you're looking at people who are incumbents who are running, you can advertise their track record. And then for candidates who have not been in office, they can tell you what their position is, and you can advertise that. So that's what we're going to be focusing on for our questionnaire. What you should not do, and this is more so that Move to Amend can maintain our nonpartisan image, I guess I'll use that word, and commitment, instead of looking like we're in cahoots with any one party, because actually that's part of our principles, that we are nonpartisan and that we're not aligned with any party. It's more we're looking for all the parties to align with us. So we recommend not showing favoritism to one candidate or political party. However, as we go forward and particular candidates endorse our effort and others do not, we can certainly advertise that. You do not want to coordinate with candidate campaigns or political parties to do voter registration drives, get out the vote campaigns, or other efforts. And this is actually a legal requirement. So as a 501c4 under Citizens United, this is kind of the one restriction that's still there, right? And this applies to us, that we cannot coordinate with candidates and or political parties. And so make sure that you avoid doing that, because that would get you and us potentially into legal trouble, and we would not want that. And affiliates are also, and Move to Amend volunteers as like a group, like a working group, not as individuals. As individuals, you're of course free to financially support political candidates, but not officially representing Move to Amend. So you can't use your affiliate resources to support political candidates. And again, underscoring, you cannot coordinate efforts with a candidate or political party. So what you can do is what we're focusing on for Pledge to Amend. So first of all, we have the component that's the voter pledge, and the purpose of that is to educate the public and bring them to Move to Amend, and then also to apply pressure to candidates and elected officials and to elevate the issue. I'm not sure we'll be able to pull it off, on the whole in 2016, but the goal is to, with each subsequent election, raise this to where it becomes a litmus test issue for voters. You know, some voters, they will not vote for a candidate that is not pro-choice. Some voters will not vote for a candidate that opposes gun control. What we want is for people to not be willing to vote for candidates who have not taken a position in support of the We the People Amendment. So this is what the voter pledge says. I pledge to vote for local, state, and federal candidates who support the movement to amend the United States Constitution to firmly establish that money is not speech and that human beings, not corporations, are persons entitled to constitutional rights. So this is just a pledge that voters take, and we have, pledge forms. Basically, it looks like the petition that you can print off and take to any political event that you go to between now and the election, and encourage people to take this voter pledge. And you can, table, you can go to Labor Day picnics, you can go to the farmers market, candidate forums, candidate events, take it to work with you. This is an educational tool, and it's also a sign-up tool that when people sign the pledge, then they're also signing up with Move to Amend. And so we're recruiting more people to our campaign. So we have the voter pledge set up online on the Pledge to Amend page already. You can download the pledge petition, and there are also talking points provided for you. All of this is on the Pledge to Amend page, which at the very end of the webinar is the page that you'll be taken to. Then our other strategy is the candidate questionnaire and Pledge to Amend itself. So what this does is brings our issue to people who are running for office, either as incumbents or challengers. It's an opportunity to educate candidates and elected officials about our issue. And if a candidate gets elected, you can hold them accountable to the position adopted on the campaign trail. And a number of the folks in the House of Representatives who have signed on as co-sponsors to the We the People Amendment in the last 2 years have come on because they signed the Pledge to Amend when they were running for office last time in 2014. So this has a direct link to not just education, but actually securing more co-sponsors if we're targeting folks in Congress. And then, of course, people who are running for state office. This also helps to make sure that there are champions for our bills when we're running them in the state legislature. And for local folks, it might help to support local resolutions that we're working on. But also remember that the people who are most likely to be in Congress in 10 years are people who are elected to office right now at the municipal or state level. People who like being in political office and intend to stay. Generally speaking, they kind of move up the ladder, and so getting to them early when they're running for city council or mayor or county board of commissioners is a very strategic move on our part. And so we want to make sure to not ignore those municipal folks, even though it might seem like small potatoes now. So the candidate questionnaire and pledge form basically has 4 questions. It's really simple. There's not a lot of time that it would take somebody to fill it out, and that's on purpose to make it easy for them to just fill it in. So first, they're committing to supporting amending the Constitution. Second, they're committing to using their office to support the movement to amend. So that might mean passing resolutions or legislation, or just using their bully pulpit as an elected official to speak out about the need for the amendment. And, in all those pieces, you want to get that so that you can come back to them and basically solidify their role as a champion in office of our movement. And then question 3 is asking them how they plan to use their public office, get a little bit more information from them on what they're willing to commit to. And then number 4 is basically just an opportunity for them to let the voters know what their position is on the Citizens United ruling. And, that might be helpful to you, but on the whole, folks used that last time to just basically talk a little bit about their principles and values as it relates to Citizens United. And that's meant to kind of help entice them to actually fill out the questionnaire and pledge, because it's an opportunity for them to educate the voters about who they are. So Move to Amend's national office is going to be targeting all of the federal candidates. So we have a letter that will be getting out actually over the next few weeks We're compiling all addresses shortly here with our intern and staff team for everyone who's running for president, Senate, and the U.S. House of Representatives this year. So we'll be sending a letter in the mail to all of those candidates, no matter what party they're part of, how likely they are to win, doesn't matter, we're sending it to all of them. We're encouraging affiliates and other volunteers, basically all of you who are participants on this call, to target your state races, so that's state legislatures, attorney general, governor, whatever is up in your state, and also local municipal races as well. So that's city, county, dog catcher, doesn't matter. Again, people who, maybe they're running for tax assessor right now, but in 6 years they might run for county supervisor. And so getting them early and really making the connection that corporate rule and corporations claiming constitutional rights and big money in politics is an issue that is relevant to people who are in local office. We have countless examples around the country of corporations and the wealthy buying local races as well, or trying to. And we want to make sure that people understand that this is not just a federal and state issue. This affects us in our backyards, in our hometowns. If you and your affiliate are in the process of building a relationship with your congressional representative who's likely to be reelected, or somebody who's likely to unseat that person, and it makes sense to you to be the ones to do the follow-up on our initial letter, the phone calling, the emailing, maybe even the in-person visit, to encourage them to fill out the questionnaire if they haven't, and you want to take that over, then by all means we'd be happy to let you do the follow-up. You just let us know. And at the end of this webinar, there's a survey where you can let us know kind of what you're thinking in terms of where you want to target. If you're not totally sure yet, that's okay. Just give us a general idea. And as we get closer, you'll be able to zero in on exactly what you're going to commit to. And if you want to do your congressional candidate follow-up, that is just fine. So that's Senate or House of Representatives. Otherwise, we'll do our best with our small staff and board to take that on ourselves. So again, if that's something of interest and you have capacity for it, great. If that means that you're not going to focus on the state and municipal, I'd invite you to maybe rethink that, and let's have a division of labor so we actually cover both. So that's something to just be thinking about and bringing back to your group. So the process will be that you'll want to determine which races you'll be targeting. You probably want to wait until the filing period has ended just to make sure that you get everybody who, especially for local races, you might not fully know who's running yet. So that might be your county elections department. For state races, it's going to be your Secretary of State. We already know who's running for president. We're not totally sure. Maybe for the Democratic Party and the Green Party, and maybe some others, kind of who will be the candidate. So we got to wait until those to the conventions, and then we'll have the full list. You want to send a letter inviting all candidates who are running for a particular race. So don't just cherry pick the ones you like or the ones that you want to shame. Go for everyone. And you want to give them enough time to respond. So on the Pledge to Amend page, we have the sample letter that you can use, and our suggestion is that you plan to have your letter out to candidates by August 1st, and that their deadline to respond is September 9th. And then our goal will be to have the results up by the 12th. We might still be adding stragglers, and that's okay, but we want to make sure folks who participated last time know that we weren't really able to, because of the timeline that we were on, kind of our first time trying it, we sort of missed anybody who did absentee or early voting this year. We want to make sure that doesn't happen. So we're going to be, basically saying that we've got the final responses in September, so that for the whole month of October and up to Election Day, November 8th, we will be publicizing the results of the candidate survey to voters and letting them know. So the way to make sure that people actually finish up this questionnaire, because they get a lot of them, and also they have a lot going on if they're running for office. So don't just send the letter. And again, we provide the letter, and then you fill in particulars of kind of the races and who you're writing it to. But then you want to make follow-up calls to make sure that the campaign received your materials and that you're on their radar. And as you get closer to the deadline, you want to make sure that you maybe make some additional calls. Don't worry about pestering them. That's your job. That's what you want to do. If they respond online, we'll have a process so that you can see who has responded. As we move over to our new database, that information will actually be in the database, so it'll be really easy for you to look. Right now it's in a separate spreadsheet, so we will, have to, for the next month, make sure that anybody that comes in, we coordinate with each other. We already have some candidates that have taken the pledge, and so those are already up online, and we'll be posting daily so that you can see. And then you want to decide how you'll publish and promote the results. You can make printed copies. You can send a press release. We have examples of those things. You can point people to the website and send email blasts to the petition signers in your area. You might go to other groups' meetings and, announce kind of here's the results and pass out a flyer. That's up to you, but you want to make sure that you have enough time to get that all printed up and promote it so that people actually know what happened, and then you're really maximizing the opportunity. So we will provide the pledge/questionnaire questions. We already have those up online. We have them printed as well that you can use. We have the sample letter that you can send to candidates in the mail. We have a script for making the follow-up calls to remind them. We have a template that you can use for a handout for voters, and we have sample press releases, one to say that you're kicking off the campaign at the beginning, and then one when you have the results. So all that stuff is already up on the Pledge to Amend page on the site. And I see that there are some questions, so we'll come back to all of those at the end. But I'm going to pass it over to Rick to talk about kind of the final component of the Pledge to Amend campaign, which is bird dogging candidates.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for the background, Jessica and Caitlin. And I was going to say the same thing. We see quite a few questions coming in, and we'll get to those. I'm going to talk about one strategy, which is bird dogging candidates, and it's not the only strategy. And I think we've addressed a few already, but we want you to write letters. We want you to talk to your neighbors. We want you to make sure that money is not speech and corporations are not people is an issue every time you get a chance to be in front of the press, to be in front of crowds of volunteers, to be at any event. But I'm going to specifically be talking about bird dogging. And that means that every time you have a candidate, whether it's a congressional candidate, a county commission candidate, anyone in a public forum, you bring this issue to the forefront. Because we're only going to win when people realize this is our issue. This is the issue that, as I said, introducing myself, the issue that defines our generation is that, money is not speech and corporations are not people. So the purpose of bird dogging our candidates is to make sure that our issue, the issue we're talking about, is elevated in the media and to the public, whether it's the press is there or people are there that never thought about it. So we want to be there to bring that up. And we want to elevate the issue to the incumbents, the challengers, politicians, and, people in office. And this is an election year, and this is the perfect time to do it. Excuse me. So, this is our opportunity to educate candidates who may not have ever really thought about this, and elected officials. And if that candidate gets elected, whether they're an incumbent getting reelected or they're a new person coming in, we can hold them accountable to a position that they agreed to when they were on the campaign trail. And this slide, we're not going to show the full slide, is Mitt Romney, who was bird dogged by people in Iowa that had attended a Move to Amend seminar, had agreed to go do this, and there was Mitt saying corporations are people, and we all know that's ridiculous, and even the mainstream media were able to pick up on this and say, here's Mitt Romney saying the absurd, and it went on for weeks and weeks and weeks. So, bird dogging has a very powerful effect. It gets attention in the media, and it gets the candidates to, reassess what they just said. It's like, I'm sure for weeks after this, Mitt Romney was saying, did I really say this? And, that's exactly what we're shooting for. If we're going to win, we need people to reassess what they already believed, and we need the media to help us, and we need, to have these victories where, those 7 or 8 people in Iowa who went to this event with one task in mind, they had a success, and now they're reinvigorated to keep at it. So, there's many levels that this helps out. So the next slide here is, what is our strategy? What do we do it? How do we do it? So the best way to get this done is to go to public candidate forums where people are not necessarily expecting you. So it can happen at candidates events, but it mostly happens at public forums where the media is there. And if you're organizing these kind of activities, what we really want is to plan to attend all forums in your neighborhoods and in your state. And ideally have different people. I think we've all felt like we're the only one there. So you need to recruit people to come along with you so that the issues come from different places and that the issues are brought up from a wide variety of people. So here's coming up some helpful hints on how to bird dog and how to be successful. So, number one is find out where the candidates are and get there, and you look through their website, their campaign website, you look through media websites, you look through community calendars, you call their staff and say, where are these people going to be in my community? And you find out all that information. And then you get your group together, As I just said, if it's 1 or 2 people, great, it's better than nothing. But if you have 8 or 10 or 12 people at an event, all the better. And not only can you spread yourselves out through the crowd to be seen as different, but you can also talk to people that are also there and say, hey, how do you feel about Citizens United? How do you feel about is free speech the same as free spending? Questions like that. So you want to be able to have a mass of people, and you want to be able to be where the candidates are. And before you do that, you need to get together as a group and say, okay, who's going to ask this question? Who's going to ask this question? What's the crux? How can we make sure at least one of us, and preferably many of us, are the ones that are getting interviewed by, depending on the format, is it a question and answer or is it talking to the media? But, be ready to have several avenues to approach the same topic with. And then number 4 on this page, get there early, get good seats, because, they want to ask people in the front row. They want to ask people that are right there, raise your hand early, spread out so that you're not just all isolated. Oh, there's these 6 people with this one issue, but instead we're everywhere. This is an issue that's important to all of us here, and that's really important. And then number 5 here, get your hand up first, fast, and high. Of course, you want to be called on. Don't be shy. You're spending all this time organizing, and to get there and then not be called on you're going to end up going home feeling, oh, we didn't really do it. But instead, get there early, get called on, get your question up, and, it's not a time to be shy. It's a time to be really putting yourself up there. And then, number 6, coming in and leaving the candidate, especially a presidential or congressional candidate, is going to have this line. They're going to have their photo ops. You need to be there. And if you can get online or on camera, whether it's a media camera or your own person who's filming, that's really critical, especially if we get them to make a commitment. Okay, so number 7, get quoted, speak to the press. Again, don't be shy. This is a critical issue, and it's an election season, and the media is looking for different angles. They've got their horse race angle, they've got their other various angles, but if suddenly 4, 5, 6 events happen in your state or your region, and the question is, do you believe that free speech equals free spending, or do you believe corporate rights are the same as personal rights? If you can get that in the press, that's what we want right now. It's election season. They want to cover the elections. They want to have different angles. So, and there's the reminder here, we're not for or against any candidate. What we're for is making it clear that money is not speech and corporations are not people. So when you're talking to the press, if you're talking to the press, when you're talking to other people, that's our message, and that's what we want to stick with over and over and over. And the candidates will hopefully come around if you're doing a good job bird dogging, and if every event they go to for the next 2 months, they're asked about that, then that's going to become an issue. But again, Move to Amend is not endorsing particular candidates. We're about bringing up the issue. And the last thing here is publicize your efforts, publicize your results. Hey, look, both of our candidates, or all 5 of our candidates for this office, have come on board and said they believe that money is not speech. They believe that corporations are not people. That's a victory, and that's what we need to build on going from election season to congressional season or to state legislative season. So, don't be shy about, claiming your victories. Hey, we did it, and now we're ready for the next stage. And, some candidates might not come on board for that, but that's okay. We need to just highlight the victories and, again, not be endorsing certain candidates or others. So the summary here is, know where the candidates stand and do the research in advance. Be assertive. Be sure you get in line, raise your hand when it's time. Be polite, because most candidates will not tolerate rude people or questions. They'll just dismiss that. They'll okay, you're against me. I've got to spend my time finding people that are for me. So you can build a dialogue, and even if they don't come out during the campaign in favor of us, if they had, 25 events and at 20 of them people said, this is what's important to us, then once they do get elected, they'll consider that. So, don't expect instant gratification all the time. Politicians have to be, wishy-washy, if you will. But, at the same time, be direct. It's like, this is what matters to us. This is the issue we're here to talk to you about. And, press them, but don't get rude if they don't make a commitment. And then end with a very specific question, will you support the idea that free speech is not the same as free spending or free money or what have you? And are corporations people? It's like, do you really believe that a corporation, and we all know the history of what a corporation is, but, don't be afraid to be specific, but at the same time, don't expect an exact answer, which is what we want, but we can't always expect it. So moving on, what Move to Amend can help you with in your local affiliate or as an individual is good questions. We'll give you some questions to ask that we hope you will spread out among your people to ask. Best practices and tips, it's like what we've learned over the years and how we think we can get positive results. Videos that we have that might help you, and press releases. Getting press is really important. And even if we don't get commitments from the candidates, if we can get press saying one of the critical issues in this election is the Move to Amend, movement, that's great too. So just to summarize and sort of shift a little bit, it's election time. This is our perfect time to illustrate this problem. And, we hope that you will all research spending in your local elections. What huge dark money groups have influenced your county commission races, your city council races? And can you, publicize that so people start to realize it's not just a national thing with the Koch brothers and this and that other group, but it's pervading our political system. The other thing we hope you'll do is publish letters to the editor, submit letters to the editor, opinion pieces, and do some research and say, candidate X has been, supported by these other groups. We don't really want to name specific candidates, but just talk about how much money is being spent in your local elections. And just as an example, I got involved in New Mexico politics, and the late 90s, $10,000 to $20,000 was a lot of money to be spent in a state legislative race. Well, in this last election, 100, 200, 300,000 was not uncommon. And I think we all have examples of that in our local states. And the other thing we'll hope you'll do is send out press releases saying, this candidate or all these candidates, there was $500,000 spent in an election that, 10 years ago it was 50,000. And what's going on? And, are our elections for sale? So I hope I covered that pretty well. There's a lot of other issues around the movement to amend. There's a lot of other issues around money and politics. And in the hour or so that we've had, we tried to cover one of those and tried to focus on what we think is most important. And having said that, I will turn it over to, I believe, Caitlin to sort of summarize it and address the questions. I see there have been quite a few questions. So, Caitlin, you on?
Yep. Thanks so much, Rick, for that. So just to kind of underscore a couple things before we go to questions. So there's basically kind of 4 components to Pledge to Amend that we're asking you to think about participating in. And some of them might be more exciting to you than others. And so if your group wants to focus in a little bit more on one thing or another, that's okay. But there's kind of there's a menu of 4 things to choose from, and ideally you can hit all of them. So the first is the voter pledge, getting voters to commit that they're going to look to see where the candidates stand and they're going to vote accordingly. The second goes along with that, the candidate questionnaire and the pledge to amend itself that we're going to direct to candidates, asking them to get on record with their position on the We the People Amendment and that they're going to help us and be on our team, or not. So that obviously is important for you to do if you're encouraging people to do the voter pledge. then it's pretty important that you also do the candidate questionnaire so that you can help those voters know who to support and who not to support. That's also, I would say, the candidate questionnaire and pledge to amend is really important for us for securing congressional sponsors for our bill in Congress, and also state and municipal representative support after the election. So in terms of kind of long-lasting effect, the candidate questionnaire is a really important component. And then bird dogging candidates might help you to secure responses to the questionnaire, but that can also happen, even if you didn't do any of the other pieces. If you just went to candidate forums and events with, one person and a cell phone, you might be able to get something really juicy of someone on record, and you might be able to influence the whole discussion about that race by a really well-timed question and having a camera. So part of what's on our resource page at Pledge to Amend is instructions for how to get good footage, and that's something you want to keep in mind. So the first part is asking the question, but the second part, to really make sure that it actually is seen, is not relying on the candidates' media or the local or state media to be the ones to broadcast it. So making sure that you have a way to get the answers broadcasted yourself. And there's a few examples from last time that are up on our site, and instructions on how to do that if you've never done that before. It does not take a lot. A cell phone is fine, but just kind of thinking ahead a little bit to make sure. And then the last piece is using the current elections to illustrate the problem of money in politics. And, that might be a little bit of research in terms of, what spending was before Citizens United and since. That might be, putting the spotlight on particular races where, one person or corporation or other entity is really trying to influence with money what the outcome will be, but really illustrating the problem with the current elections. So that's 4 components to Pledge to Amend, and they suit different kinds of people, right? There's folks who might like to do research that maybe would be the ones to, submit those letters to the editor and do the looking through the, campaign disclosure things that candidates put out to find out, who's contributing money to them. There's the outgoing folks who want to, jump out in front, and bird dogging might be really good for them. There's the folks who maybe already have relationships with candidates because maybe you're active with your local political parties or have been involved in getting candidates elected, and you kind of tend to know like where the candidate forums are and who's on the League of Women Voters, and maybe you're more likely to be able to, be the person who gets to ask the question at the candidate forum. And then there's also the people who, want a table and go to, community events and push the voter pledge. So ideally, you can do all of them, and ideally, no matter what kind of personality you have or what your background and experience is, or what you want to learn, there's a place to plug in to Pledge to Amend. So this is a really nice, well-rounded campaign. So all the materials and details are up at pledge to amend, movetoamend.org/pledge-amend. All the stuff we ran through is all there. And then last time, those of you who were there before remember that we had a monthly conference call just for Pledge to Amend to basically come and ask questions, get support, tell us what you're thinking as you're getting started, check and make sure if it sounds right, if you're running into any trouble, if you have something really exciting to share. So we're not going to have a special additional call because we already have a lot of calls for many of us, but we've decided to take the first half of the political organizing committee calls that are already happening on the third Monday of each month at 3 o'clock Pacific, 6 o'clock Eastern. So apologies for West Coast people who work. But we can find other ways to support you one-on-one. You can let us know when you need help. But you can join that committee call, and we have a lot of other work to do besides Pledge to Amend, but we'll take the first part of it to find out from you what you're working on, how it's going, and if there's anything we can do to help. So the first one of those is next Monday, and you're welcome to join us then. And please make sure you stick around at the end to fill out the survey, and that will be how we will know who's interested in Pledge to Amend, and we'll send you reminders for those calls. And that way we'll be able to give you some support every month, and you'll also be able to hear from others who are working on Pledge to Amend what they're running into. Folks found those calls really helpful, so we didn't want to not have that mechanism. And then, as Jessica talked about at the beginning, our structure is around mostly these local affiliate groups, and that's really where the rubber meets the road. So our hope for those of you who are not currently part of affiliates is that Pledge to Amend can be a project that you can take on in your community, any one of those 4 components of it, and ideally bring in some of your friends. If you have nobody that you can imagine might be able to help you, then we can try to find other Move to Amend petition signers in your area to let you to reach out to and see if they would link up with you, and for this to basically begin to be the seed from which a Move to Amend affiliate will grow. So you don't need to worry about affiliating right away. You can kind of undergo this Pledge to Amend campaign over the next many months. But then as we're wrapping up and coming to an end, our hope is that you'll also be thinking about continuing on with Move to Amend as an affiliate if you're not already part of one. And we can provide you with information along the way to help you get started there. All that stuff's up on our website. So thank you all so much. We definitely have some time for questions here, and I do see that there are several. So let's go through them. I'll read them off, and if it makes sense for Rick or Jessica to cover them, I'll pass it over. Otherwise, I'll do my best too. So first question is from Mark in Jacksonville, Florida. When should we use the pledge petition versus the regular petition? So the voter pledge versus the motion to amend. In all honesty, for the purposes of kind of where those people come at the end into the Move to Amend database, and then use them to, reach out to and invite to local events and things like that, it doesn't really matter all that much. So I would say that if you're going to be participating in Pledge to Amend, try bringing the voter pledge instead. The only thing is that, to keep in mind is that for a lot of people, this maybe still isn't their primary issue. And so what you would not want is for somebody to ask somebody to take the voter pledge and then to say, oh no, I'm sorry, the issue that matters most to me is, say, abortion. Nope, I support Move to Amend, I'm totally down, but I'm not going to only vote based on this. And then you lose them. So having the motion to amend as backup to say, okay, well then this is where you can just sign up to say that you support Move to Amend. Because the Pledge to Amend, I would say, at least right now, as this issue is really important to people, but it might not be the only issue that matters, you wouldn't want to lose somebody because the only thing that you have available for them to sign up is the voter pledge. But if you get somebody, if you're using the motion to amend and you're tabling and somebody's really jazzed, you can encourage them to also sign the voter pledge to say, hey, you want to take it to the next level and really commit to voting along these lines, then here's our voter pledge. And it just solidifies their support further. And so the two complement each other. What's most important is that you get their contact information so that you can continue to invite them to be more and more engaged. But if they've committed to do the voter pledge, then that means that they're also probably really likely to look for your candidate survey. And so, they're kind of more engaged at that point, and that's what you want. Let's see. Tracy from Pocahontas, Illinois asks, can you tell me if my congressmen have already pledged or not? So the way to find that out, Tracy, is to go to the Pledge to Amend page, which is movetoamend.org. I'm going to type it into the chat. Pledge/pledge-amend should show up in the chat right there. And kind of a little bit ways down the page, there's a link that says something along the lines of find out if my representative or if my elected official has taken the pledge. And then when you click there, you can see whether or not they have taken the pledge. Now keep in mind that's not the same thing as being a co-sponsor. So if they're in the House of Representatives and they're not one of the 20 people who have co-signed on to the Move to Amend amendment that is in Congress, then the Pledge to Amend, and we do have a few people who for some reason they have taken the pledge, but they have not yet become co-signers. But it's very helpful for us to know that they committed, and there are our primary targets to come on as full co-signers. So you want to kind of look in both places. If you don't see their name on the Pledge to Amend, then they're likely not a co-sponsor, but you want to look over there and just check. And what we really want is them to do both. And that is always getting updated. So as new people come on and take the pledge or become co-sponsors, that's on the website. And the co-sponsors can be found at movetoamend.org/amendment. Mark from Jacksonville, Florida asks, by letter, do you mean hard copy, snail mail, letter? Yes, we do. However, it doesn't hurt to also send it via email. So we actually do both. We send the letter in the mail, and then we also send it via email if we can find an email address. Oftentimes, every state is different, at least in terms of what's required from the elections department. So sometimes you might not be able to find an email, but for the most part, you almost always can find an address, because when you register to run for office, you have to live somewhere. You have to be registered to vote. So you can find that information from your elections department, your Secretary of State, if you're talking about the state level, or sometimes there's the state attorney general. It varies by state, kind of who holds that information. But you can do some Googling to find it. If you have trouble, we can help you. And then you can generally find an address, and then we do the double checking of looking for a candidate website. And if they have a website, then chances are there's a way to either email them or submit via their website. So when we're targeting the folks who are running for federal office, we're going to do both, and encourage you to do the same when you're looking for state or municipal candidates. Let's see. Joan Farb asks, how do your submitted letters to the editors get published? Rick, do you want to take that one in terms of just kind of explaining how you submit a letter to the editor and how that works?
Sure. Every newspaper has different standards. Most won't let you do one more than one a month. I would just start inundating them with letters. They all have different requirements, 150 words, 300 words. But, it's a great way to get attention is to have 6 or 8 or 10 people, or even one person, send letters to the editor. And, you just have to find out the specific requirements/limitations and send it in. And especially in rural areas, they welcome that kind of thing. They want to have feedback from the community because it makes them feel like they're the community newspaper. So, just find out what the limitations are and send them in, and get 2 or 4 or 6 of your friends to do the same thing. And that's what we recommend. And, don't overlook websites and radio talk shows that will also be happy to have input from the community so that they feel like community papers or community radio stations.
Yeah, and I would encourage folks, if you want to look at the Move to Amend website, and kind of up in the top right, there's a search bar. And if you type in letter to the editor, you can see a number of examples of letters to the editor that folks that are involved with various affiliates have submitted over the years. Most of them are on those affiliate pages. The other thing is, if you look in the toolkit under media, then there are some tips for how to write letters to the editor and submit them, kind of a how-to. I could also put that link up on the Pledge to Amend page to make it easier to find the how-to. And Rick makes a really good point about radio stations. And I think we also have a tip sheet on how to call into radio stations. And a lot of radio stations will talk about, especially local races, community radio stations might have particular shows that are call-in where you can have a little bit of discussion with the host. So would encourage folks to definitely think about that. And that's a good place to publicize the results of your questionnaire in letters to the editor. You have to probably do it kind of in a pithy way, so you can't put everyone's responses, but you could say, look, if folks are looking for information about where the candidates stand on, whether we should pass a constitutional amendment to say that corporations are not people and money is not speech, you can go to this page on our site, and you can direct people to the pledge page, and that would be a good way to spread the word. And then same thing, calling into radio shows. So you can use those for explaining, what's going on with money in politics and local races, but also advertising what's happening with your Pledge to Amend campaign. Let's see. John from Jacksonville, Florida says, I have a candidate pledge. Who do I turn it into? So, John, actually the best thing to do would be to go ahead and fill out the form online that we've got up now on the Pledge to Amend page with the answers. If there's any reason why that gives you pause or is difficult or whatnot, you can certainly mail it into the office, attention Shelley, and we'll put it up there for you. But if you want to get it submitted sooner, then go ahead and just fill out the form online with the pledge that you've got. And congratulations, good job. And Judy from Port Townsend, Washington says, our congressman pledged in the last election to support, did the Pledge to Amend, but hasn't become a co-sponsor of the We the People amendment. Should we bring that up? I kind of touched on that just a little bit ago, I think probably before you typed this question. But yes, so Pledge to Amend is focusing on candidates, and your congressperson will be up for election. So, you want to use that in the candidate, circle back to them. But they're also a sitting representative at this point. So we are also doing We the People Lobby Week with the August recess, and that's kind of a different campaign that we're doing. And I know, Judy, you're part of an affiliate, so you kind of have more access to that information. We haven't put that out there to the general Move to Amend list yet. But certainly prioritizing any representative who has taken the pledge but has not become a co-sponsor. That's who we've targeted whenever we've done visits in D.C. over the last couple of years, and there's still some people who are not willing to finish that up. So, you as the constituent are the best person to apply that pressure and say, look, maybe it was you who actually got that person to sign the pledge last time, and what is wrong that you're not making good on your commitments? Were you just trying to say that to the voters at the time? Do we need to advertise that this next election that you didn't follow through? So don't be rude, but definitely feel free to exercise some power there and say, we could certainly let all of the co-sponsors or all the petition signers in your district know that you didn't make good on your pledge last time. I'd rather not do that. Why don't you become a co-sponsor right now before you're really in campaign season. Go for it. And Diane asks, petition contest versus pledge to amend signatures. Okay, so this is for affiliates. And yeah, we haven't quite worked that out with the petition contest, but I think what we'll do is if they're a new person who has not yet signed the motion to amend, and the first thing that they do is they sign the voter pledge to amend, then yeah, we'll count them. We haven't quite figured out how we will do that. The competition to try and get as many motion to amend sign-ups as we can for affiliates is kind of new, and we haven't quite got it integrated into all of our campaigns yet. But rest assured that if you get a sign-up, your affiliate will get it will be counted, and it will be on us to figure out how to make that work. So the main thing is people coming to move to amend. That's what these sign-ups are, and so what exactly they're most jazzed about is not as important in terms of the numbers, at least as it relates to that competition. So feel free to pester us later, Diane, if you're still not clear on kind of how that's counting. And I think those are all the questions. Does anybody else have any other questions? You can type them in the chat. The next steps, I'll move on to this as we're looking to see if there's anybody else. So there's a survey at the end of this webinar that'll only take you a couple of minutes. It's really important that you fill it out. It will give us feedback on what you thought of this webinar, but also that's where you'll let us know kind of whether you have an affiliate group that you're working with, whether it's just you, whether you need us to try and help find you some additional Move to Amend supporters in your area to link up with. Which races you're thinking that you're going to target. Excuse me, this doesn't have to be your final answer, but just kind of what you have in mind so we have a sense of it. And so please take a couple minutes to fill out the survey, and then when you submit the survey, you'll be taken to the Pledge to Amend page. I want to remind you that the best way to get started here is to hold a meeting of your group. If you're an affiliate already, then at your next meeting, report back on kind of all of this and figure out together what your plan will be. If you don't have an affiliate yet, bring some friends in and get started. You can watch the recording. You can just do a quick summary of kind of what you learned here. We'll provide the slides to everyone who's here, so you could use them if you want to. And make a plan. If you come up with questions in that initial discussion, then you can join one of our conference calls over the next few months to ask us for advice on the third Monday of each month. And if you are not an affiliate yet and you want to get started with a group, again, you don't have to do this very first. We recommend kind of getting started with Pledge to Amend and just focusing on that, but so that you have an idea of where you're headed for the long run to kind of create a group out of this process. You can find information at movetoamend.org/start-group. You have a few months probably to get situated. Campaign season really starts up around Labor Day. So, we are starting earlier than last time, and that's good. You don't want to wait until then, though, to have a plan. So use the summer to kind of to make a game plan, to begin to get a sense of which races you want to target. Federal races, might already have some stuff going on. Plan to be at Labor Day picnics. That's where a lot of candidates will be, so that's a great bird dogging opportunity. And I would say, if possible, you want to try and get the candidate survey out to everyone by August 1st. So taking the rest of June and July to kind of make your plan and then getting ready to go come August is the way to make sure you're on top of all this. And if you have questions, you can write to us at info@movetoamend.org. And that's our old phone number, but that goes to the Sacramento office. Looks like we forgot to update that slide, but no problem. You can call us anytime. Let's see. Oh, it looks like I missed a question. John from Jacksonville is asking, what about the primaries? So we decided that because we were focusing on the Leadership Summit this spring, and we didn't really have our ducks in a row yet for Pledge to Amend to be able to make sure that we were going to pull off the federal lobby day and the all of that. We didn't put a lot into the primaries that have already happened. So I believe that most of them are already done. There might be some local elections that I'm not aware of that are still underway. I would say for next time, we can start at the beginning of the year and catch the primaries as well. If there are any races that are still happening, you can get started right now. But most of this is all geared towards the November election. And there's other stuff that you can do between now and then if you want to be focusing on your representative and trying to get them to come on as a co-sponsor. That would be an activity that you could do, between the summer. And like I said, we're going to be doing a We the People Lobby Week, targeting folks in the House and Senate when they're back in the district during the August recess. So those things are going to kind of go in tandem with Pledge to Amend. And then for the next election, so in 2018, the goal will be to not miss the primary election. So I think, that's our last slide. Looks like those are all the questions. So once again, thanks everyone for being here. Thanks Rick and Jessica for helping to lead the webinar. And
well,
if folks can stay on for
a pleasure.
Great. And if folks can stay on for a couple minutes just to fill out the survey, that would be really appreciated. Then you'll be taken to the Pledge to Amend page, and a reminder that our first political organizing call, where you can come and ask any additional questions that you have, is next Monday. If you're not ready with questions until our July call, that's just fine. That call will be on July 18th. So hopefully we'll see you at one or both of those conference calls, and you can be in touch with us on the number on your screen or the email if you have any questions between now and then. So I'm going to end the meeting up now. You will be taken straight to the survey. Please take a couple minutes to fill it out, and we'll be sending the recording as well as the slides to you all tomorrow. Feel free to follow up with any questions that you have at any point. Thanks everyone for your good work, and have a great night. Bye.
Bye.